right. Hello again, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So as many of you know, earlier this month I had the pleasure of helping to edit our Under 30 Europe list. And I was absolutely blown away by all the young talent that I saw. I think my favorite stat is that collectively you all raised more than $2 billion in funding, which is amazing. But this year, more than others, I saw a huge uptick in the number of influencers and social entrepreneurs and social media founders, and two of which are here with us today, Krystal and Ben, and one, Karoline, is an alum of the Europe list. And the three of us were talking, and we think that one of the biggest things, the biggest trends in European social media is that it's really breaking down into three buckets today. One is the creators and influencers who are creating their own content. The second of which is we have people who just want to privately share their social media content with their friends and family. And the third is brands who want to use social media to build profits and revenue. And lucky for us, we have three of these people. Three are representing all of the buckets, so that is wonderful. And Krystal, or Karoline, I want to start with you. Social media, as we know it, is constantly changing. It seems like even in recent years, there's been so many changes. You founded your company a decade before TikTok and other video social media apps became popular. How did you know your company would succeed before the TikTok renaissance, we'll call it?
So I guess I had a bit of a convoluted journey in terms of starting the business. I was actually in medical school and then in pharmacology. Then I thought that I should be making lamps. And then from that, I got to video production. And from video production, so this was around 2012 time. So if you remember, you had to install Flash on your computer to be able to watch videos. So it was a different time. But it was a time when video was really starting to increase in the on-demand format. So we weren't just watching it on TV anymore. And in parallel, there's this trait in humans, I think, which is curiosity. We're also driven to find out more things and discover and learn, and it just kind of made sense to put these two things together. And we just wanted to make all videos interactive so that if I'm watching something and I want to know more, I should be able to just click on it and see more details and do something about it. So we then tried to start this interactive Netflix, which we quickly discovered was the wrong time, and then pivoted into trying to work with brands, making videos interactive and shoppable. But even then, we were meeting with some really senior people in big brands in the US who'd never heard of Instagram. Let alone anything else. So it took quite a long time, but it's interesting now to see how the world has completely changed. And the idea of shoppable content, even back then we couldn't decide if we should spell it with 1 or 2 P's because it wasn't a word. So yeah, very exciting times now, and I think the lesson is that patience can pay off sometimes.
Absolutely. I think in 2012, I don't even know if I had an Instagram either. I maybe had just downloaded it. But speaking of Instagram, Ben, you knew I was going to come to you with that. So when people think of photo apps, like their mind goes right to Instagram. How did you think Lapse was going to succeed in a world dominated by Instagram, and how are you differentiating yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question, one that investors definitely asked. So I think we're in a really interesting place at the moment where, as a society, we place a huge amount of pressure on what we capture and what we broadcast online. At the point where actually, I think it's taken a lot of the fun out of just taking photos, right? Suddenly it feels like everything has to be perfect. And really, I think I had this kind of experience when I ended up going to Vietnam with a friend. And he gave me this film camera, and I ended up shooting my holiday on this film camera. And the experience was just so much fun. I don't know if you guys have ever used a disposable camera or a film camera. It's just so different to the experience that you have when you take photos on your phone. And so it was really that moment where I was like, hang on a minute, there's something here. And that's where sort of Lapse was born.
That is incredible. And also, I feel that I was trying to actually find a film camera the other day at a drugstore in America, and they are so expensive.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much film costs. Are you trying to fill that void with that as well?
Yeah, totally. So I think after I had this experience, I actually went on eBay and I tried to buy a film camera. And I'm not a photographer, so I had no idea how much these things cost. And they don't make these like point and shoot cameras anymore. So they cost a fortune, right? So I went on eBay and I typed in a film camera and it was like 250 quid for a plastic camera. And I was like, this is absolutely crazy. And then the actual film itself costs £15 for a roll, £15 to get it developed. So it's a really expensive and logistically expensive hobby, to be honest.
And how do you get people to use your app instead of Instagram? Like, what sets you apart?
Yeah, so I think this is probably where I can chat a little bit about actually what Lapse is. So drawing inspiration from film, with Lapse, when you take a photo, just like film, you can't see the photo. So it develops at random later, and everybody plays by the same rules. So there's no selfie camera, there's no editing, there's no uploading. So by imposing these rules that everybody plays, it ends up creating this environment which is actually far more accepting and far more authentic. And I think that's actually what people really resonate with. So when we launched in September, and we went to #1 in the US and the UK App Store, which was just absolute insanity. So I think the combination of this space where you can just be your true self with your real friends, combined with, ultimately, we spent a long time building an image processing engine which emulates real film, and the pictures just look really fucking cool, so.
Absolutely. Krystal, I want to go to you. You are the influencer who has taken some of the UK by storm with some of your hilarious videos on TikTok. I know as an influencer, you kind of live and die by how many views you get, and all of that comes down to cracking the algorithm code. And I know you are still trying to figure it out, but you've done a pretty good job. What are the biggest challenges you faced when trying to promote your content, and how do you overcome that?
Ooh, okay. So let me, I'll actually explain my content a little bit so this will all make sense. But yeah, so I teach the stuff schools don't teach to my 500,000 fans on TikTok. And a lot of it has to deal with mental health, minority topics like race, like different races, and not racist. Well, actually, yeah, I do cover that as well. But like, and women's topics and queer topics, basically a lot of things that I identify with. And at one point in my life, I didn't like myself because media put all these labels on me and said I wasn't good enough. And I was like, damn, like, because I'm gay, because I'm black and dark skinned and a woman, and do I suck? Like, am I not good? And I actually kind of like believed that at one point when I was younger. And then when I grew up, learned a little bit more about my history and just like a lot of people to be inspired by, I kind of like realized I'm actually fire, even though like media said no, but actually yeah. So I created this platform so other people could feel like this as well. Yes, y'all. Representation is everything. So, what was it? I kind of went on a tangent there.
No,
what was,
I
like,
love the tangent.
Yeah.
It got claps, so people loved it. But how are you kind of cracking the algorithm code? What's your biggest challenge when doing that?
Yeah, so basically, before I started working for myself, I worked at different media companies, and I was kind of lucky to work at the top leading companies. So once I was working at Unilad, who was like at one point like the #1 media publisher on Facebook. So I kind of learned how to make videos viral at that point, because I was like our job. My friend Bev is in the audience. We worked together, like just making viral content. And then I went on to lead teams at NBC, where I would kind of learn the news and what kind of hooks viewers. So I kind of like took understanding algorithms and understanding like kind of human psychology, and kind of like thought about how would I put that into my own brand, and instead of making like these other companies rich who aren't trying to like lift up different voices and different minorities, why don't I try to make my own thing, take my knowledge of like cracking algorithms and learning about news and media and bring it to like an audience that could actually like benefit from it. So yeah.
That's awesome. And this is for all three, but we could start with you. Any secrets you can share, or any advice for people who are trying to go viral or crack this algorithm code with their own businesses?
I would say, so advice for people trying to crack like the algorithm? Yeah, I would say mainly just like listen to what your audience wants. I would say like if you're trying to put yourself out there as an influencer, actually just checking, are there any influencers in the room or people who want to be influencers? Damn, I'm the only one? All right, well, hopefully people watching this, like if you're a brand putting your stuff online, or an influencer who is like trying to become bigger, definitely become like aligned with what you're trying to put out there, because as soon as you don't care about what you're doing, it's so easy to sniff out like who doesn't care, or like, oh, that brand message is fake. So understanding that will help you with the algorithm, because you're a part of that audience that wants to like understand what your brand message is about, or like the topics you speak of. So yeah, my message is my tip is to just be aligned with what you're doing, and also just put a lot of research into it, and yeah, trust yourself. Yeah.
Amazing. Do you guys have anything else to add there? Or I know you don't deal with that as much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the point that you were really driving home, which I was like, yes, is this idea of authenticity online, because people really sniff it out. If you're saying something that's not true, people will, it's just so obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Like they will just be like, and people online are brutal. Like, if you're like, I like muffins, but like a month earlier you were like, I hate muffins, they're gonna be like, a month earlier you said you hated muffins, and then you're there like, damn, and then you get canceled.
We all want to avoid that, for sure. That brings up a good point then about authenticity. And Karoline, I feel like there's this huge push for authenticity these days. When you're working with your brands and your clients, how do you push that with them and help them be authentic while still trying to sell something?
Yeah, it's been interesting. So one of the other side of what we do is live shopping, which obviously went crazy in China back in 2020. But the Chinese format doesn't necessarily resonate in other markets. But when we started working with brands in Europe, for example, their first protocol was, let's go and pay some influencer crazy money and let's get them to talk about our products. But in reality, that doesn't actually work, because it's not genuine. They don't know about the products. The second there's a question, they can't answer it. So actually, brands are seeing way more success using people who work at their business, which doesn't cost them anything. They're so passionate, they know so much, and they're so engaging, and it is way more authentic than someone who saw the shoes 10 seconds before. So yeah, it's been a very interesting shift in what is deemed an influencer in that sense as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Switching gears a little bit, it's no secret that raising capital in Europe for a startup is a lot harder than it is for us here in the States. How has Ben and Karoline, your experience been with that, and do you have any solutions or ideas or ways that it can improve?
Yeah. So my brother and my co-founder, who sat over there, he'd probably answer this question way better than I am. I'm the sort of product guy, and he's the commercial business expertise. So big up, Dan. I think the really interesting thing that he said when we started fundraising was, we started fundraising, it wasn't even last year. And he said, if we did this even just a year before when we're doing it now, realistically, we'd probably been laughed out of pitches, right? We were Europeans doing consumer social. Like, that's unheard of. And also, there's a bit of stigma around European startups. Americans kind of look down on it a little bit. But over the last couple of years, there's been so many amazing European startups that actually the American funds have seen that as an opportunity. and they're actually opening a lot of European arms over here at the moment. So there's an amazing opportunity right now with, if you're a European startup, there is the capital there, and there are people looking for, really amazing businesses. So it's a great time to be in entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Karoline, anything you want to add there?
Well, I definitely say you're way more conservative compared to what you at least hear from people having conversations in the US. For me as well, I've had negative feedback for being a single founder. That is very risky from an investment perspective. But actually, one of the things that has helped us a lot is taking part in a lot of different corporate accelerator programs. Not ones that take equity from you, but ones that help you with business to give you credibility and connections. I think those in Europe are really strong in terms of meeting the right people in the right places. And it is, as Ben said as well, moving in the right direction.
Excellent. And Krystal, I know you aren't pitching VCs yourself, but how are you using TikTok or other platforms to help monetize your content and actually bring in an income for all the excellent videos you do?
Yeah, so a lot of my income comes from brand partnerships. So a lot of times I just try to make sure that I am completely aligned with that brand, and what the brand values are super important as well. And also I found if I don't align with the brand, I'm not really gonna care about the content. And also that goes the other way around. If a brand reaches out to me because they're like, you get millions of views, but they really don't care about what I have to offer, then it's just not going to work out. And also my audience might be like, why are you working with that brand? Do you know what they just said about women the other day? Or, So just making sure that I do my research on the brand, and also, another thing that helps me is I'm also a content creator, so just kind of using my own skills into different services. So sometimes I will create content for different brands, or sometimes I might help them with consulting and teaching them how to make their content better, or sometimes I might do speaks and speak to different audiences. So just kind of tapping into what I'm good at in my different services, and then I kind of all throw that into my brand, which is Cut by Krystal. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That sounds great. So switching gears a little bit, I know the phrase pivot to video, at least in the United States, makes everyone groan. But we are seeing social products that started as static photo and life update apps like Facebook and others transitioning to video, trying to be more like TikTok. Ben, do you see Lapse going in that direction too?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So I think one of the things we have to understand is actually why everyone's pivoting to video. And these companies, as you said, their success is largely owed to the fact that they did static images really, really well. But what's happened is these huge companies run on an attention-based revenue model, right? So the more that you look at your phone, that equates to more advertising dollars. And so those are the metrics they're going after. So if you think about a photo, if I see a good photo, I look at it for maybe a second, 2 seconds. If I look at a good video, I'm there for 15 seconds or 60 seconds. So suddenly, all these companies are like, wow, this is the direction we need to head in. And we end up in this space where it's really strange. We're seeing the convergence of all these different platforms now going for the same thing, right? It's like the TikTokification of everything right now. And that's actually led to the opportunity that, I could be here now, is that photos have kind of been deprioritized by these platforms, but they haven't, our human innate desire to be able to capture and take photos hasn't gone anywhere. So we're focusing on photos for now, but the interesting thing is providing people the tools that they can put their photos together in an interesting, dynamic way, which can then live maybe as video on other platforms that do video well.
That makes a lot of sense. And Karoline, how does it feel that people are doing kind of what you initially started a decade ago? Does that feel, I guess, validating for you, or?
I think so. I think it's nice to see that at least all the work and what we were really trying to drive wasn't going in the complete wrong direction. And it's also very interesting to look at all the big platforms, how, talking about convergence, how everyone is now starting to just do these very similar formats of live shopping and shoppable video. And, what we do is more focused on e-com websites for brands, but it's almost becoming a standard. I think in a few years' time, you can interact with any piece of content you see anywhere. So, yeah, it's nice to see.
Good. I know you all have different markets that you're in. You're all based in the UK, but you have I know, Ben, you have a lot of users in the US, and you probably have viewers from all over the world, Krystal. What advice would you three have for founders or brands trying to break into other markets outside of their home markets? Ben, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So actually, when we were, again, in the start of our raising journey, Dan and I, we spoke to some lawyers, and we were like, you know what, okay, we're probably going to have to go to the States. We're going to have to be boots on the ground in the States to launch this thing, because, that's what apparently you need to do for some reason. The lawyer basically was completely agree with that. He was like, if anyone speaks to us, the first thing we say is you need to be in the States. And obviously we're not in the States. So we ended up doing this really interesting thing where we took a US SIM card, and so TikTok have an advertising model, but you can't advertise outside of your zone, right? But ultimately, these days businesses are borderless, and our user base actually ended up growing predominantly in the States, and that was because the way that we started the push was we put this SIM card in our TikTok account so we could basically push into the States. And I think that's the thing, you have to be really creative on how you put your, I guess, almost virtual boots on the ground in different borders.
Definitely. Krystal, you wanna jump in there?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Can you just repeat? I just want to answer this so genuinely.
No, absolutely. I was saying any advice that you have for brands or founders who want to break into other markets?
Yeah. So for me, I feel like it was a bit easier because I'm speaking about a topic that is so much bigger than me. So I think one thing is if as a brand, make sure your message is more about just your brand. Make sure it's something that people can relate to. I mean, if anything, as humans, our nature is to feel connected through storytelling. That's why music's so big. That's why video is so big, or pictures are so big. Is because we relate to it. So I feel like I have so many followers around the world because people can relate to issues dealing with women or being black or being Asian or just anything. So as long as I'm kind of trying to figure out what's happening in different communities around the world and kind of talking about it, it kind of just naturally came to my brand, and I just have a whole community of people who are relating with each other and simping with each other in the comment section. So yeah, I mean, I guess it came naturally. I think for any brand, it's just to make sure that your message is bigger than your brand, because I mean, that's going to be the things that change the world, because yeah, it's more than you. We're all trying to change together. So yeah, that's my advice.
That is great advice. And I know we're running out of time, but Karoline, I want to end with you and your expert advice, having been doing this the longest.
I think especially in Europe, the biggest barrier we found was actually language and cultural barrier. So for us to work with, because we sell to brands, and for us to sell to brands in Italy, France, Germany, you really need people who speak the local language, because it's the language, but it's also then the trust on top that comes. But you don't necessarily have to have them on the ground there. But I think build a team that is very versatile and with different backgrounds can be super efficient in doing that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you three so much for joining us from the UK. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to chatting with you more. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.